Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's edition of the Nosebleed Seats. It's our annual Year in Review edition where we run down the top 10 news stories of the St. Louis wrestling community. We're pretty tight for time as we were last year, so let's get started.
First, a couple notable mentions. WWE released Brian Breaker in May as part of a set of spring roster cuts. He had been signed in 2012. On the flip side, signed to WWE were WLW's Ryan Drago, ROH's El Generico, the Midwest Sami Callihan, and referee Jason Ayers. Davey Richards and Eddie Edwards were also brought in for a tryout match at NXT, but have yet to be signed. Richards had a major fallout with Ring of Honor where he made disparaging comments about ROH and TNA in a British magazine interview, which led to ROH firing him. The ROH locker room reportedly were glad to see him go as they viewed him as a habitual, pathological liar. The trial of Benjamin Stidham continues to be delayed into 2014 after getting into a jailhouse brawl, and mental evaluation was then ordered. A U.S. Supreme Court ruling against the law mandating a life sentence for murder committed by a minor had already complicated matters for the prosecution, who were still seeking justice for the murders of Napalm Zachary Porter, Jeff Smith, and Glenn Smith in 2009 by Stidham and 3 others. 2 of those men are serving life in prison. 1 is yet to be sentenced. Number 10, Dan the Man takes a bad fall. At Sky Pro Wrestling's second ever event, Dan the Man took on Jimmy Carrot in a singles match. The match went all around the Bellevue Plaza Gym in the early going, leading up to DTM ascending to the top rope, ready to execute a flying body tackle on a stumbling Carrot. DTM leaped, but after repeated views of the tape, it appeared the trajectory was short and to the right. He hit the gym floor on the back of his head, neck, and shoulder, breaking his collarbone and cracking his skull. SkyPro called off the remainder of the event. DTM was hospitalized over that weekend in ICU. Because of the medical expenses accrued, the Dixieland Destroyer, with assistance from Justin McIntyre, organized a fundraiser event in Chillicothe, Indestructible, which was a success. In 4 months, to the shock of everyone, DTM made his return to the ring at Dreamwave, entering the Good as Gold Rumble. The following week, he returned to the place where he suffered his injury and defeated the Dixieland Destroyer. DTM, in an interview with the NBS, did not remember anything beyond arriving at the venue, but had not gained any fears of doing high-risk maneuvers. DTM, to this day, has not wanted the footage of his fall shared with the public for a number of reasons. This interview can be viewed in episode 216 on stlwc.blip.tv. Another horrific incident occurred in Missouri as World League Wrestling's Jack Gamble and 3 others were injured in a head-on collision with a drunk driver. This after competing in St. Louis for MMWA. Gamble and his wife were hospitalized with critical injuries, while an infant and fellow wrestler, David DeLorean, escaped with minor injuries. The driver of the other vehicle did not survive. The passenger of that vehicle was hospitalized. WLW held a fundraiser event in Lynn, Missouri to help cover medical expenses. DeLorean, who was wrestling under the masked name of Dark Shadows at the time, was able to return to the ring not long after the accident. Gamble made his return to the ring at the December 7th WLW event in Richmond, Missouri. Number 9, former AWA world-class wrestler and promoter of rock and roll wrestling, Buck Zumhofe, is charged with child molestation. Zumhofe, who was known to carry a boombox to the ring for his matches, was accused of molesting his own daughter an estimated 1,800 times over a 12-year period and is charged with 12 counts of criminal sexual misconduct. Zumhofe had previously served 3 years in prison for sexual misconduct back in 1989. The abuse began in 1999, where it continued until she left in 2011. The mother had attempted to remove the daughter from Zumhofe's home, but threatened to commit suicide where the daughter would be blamed. Zumhofe also became violent and threatened her and others when she finally did leave. infuriating prosecutors is that so many within the wrestling industry knew about the illegal behavior and did nothing whatsoever to put a stop to it. The victim is believed to be Heather Zumoff, who was a wrestler herself and appeared in the rock and roll wrestling events all over the Midwest, including Central Illinois. Zumoff was scheduled to stand trial on December 6th, but the status of the case is unknown. Number 8. St. Louis wrestler Randy Orton gets attacked by a fan in South Africa. During the WWE's International Tour, Randy Orton took on Big E Langston in Cape Town, and after getting the win via RKO, a wannabe wrestler by the name of Shipo Sekhabi decided to jump into the ring and deliver a low blow. Security tackled the assailant, but Orton nailed the fan with a kick in retaliation before he was removed from the ring. Speculation erupted that the incident could be a stunt, but WWE quickly shot down that idea, saying it was not a part of the show. Why did Shipo do it? Hear from the man himself in his own words.
Randy Orton, wherever you are, man, you owe me. I'm the wrestling machine. I'm coming, Randy. I'm after the money in the bank case. I'm after the briefcase. I'm after that. And I will get it because in everything I do in this world, I keep on shining, surviving.
Oh man, you know it's all an act, eh? Are you aware of that?
I'm aware of
You're
everything.
not actually supposed to attack.
All I want is Randy Orton.
You planned this from the initial
Yeah, I
reason.
planned all of this. I'm a wrestling machine.
WWE, of course, didn't book Sekhabi against Randy Orton and pressed charges instead. Orton would go on to reunify the WWE and WCW world titles at TLC. Number 7. Metro Pro Wrestling, based in Kansas City, goes on hiatus after Time Warner Cable's Metro Sports Channel refocuses their network resources in its broadcast partnership with the University of Kansas. Because of this, the time slot used by Metro Pro Wrestling had to be given up, and due to the established production level and high definition that Metro Pro uses, it would be cost prohibitive to continue. While promoter Chris Gow could still run events, he did not want to lower the standard to do so. The final event of its 3-year run at the Turner Rec Center was held in August, where Jeremy Wyatt defeated Adam Pearce in a dog collar match to win the MPW heavyweight title. The promotion may come back in 2014 as Dave Marquez of Championship Wrestling from Hollywood announced the formation of an NWA-like sanctioning body, the United Wrestling Network, featuring a number of former NWA members with existing TV outlets, Metro Pro Wrestling one of those. Number 6, TNA Gut Check becomes a total farce. January, TNA announced they were expanding Gut Check to include fan participation by voting for their favorites after reading the wrestler profiles. TNA chose to use the wrestlers' personal names instead of their ring names without permission of the talent, angering some. Another issue was people could vote unlimited times. It was so horribly botched they had to revamp everything. The judgment of the Gut Check talent scouts was also highly questionable. While Chicago's Jay Bradley won his tryout match and got signed, former Dreamwave wrestler Ivelisse Velez, NWR's 2012 Wrestler of the Year, and former NWA World Champion Adam Pearce, and Midwest wrestler Ryan Howell all were rejected. Tough Enough contestant Diamond Steel Ryan Howell lost his tryout match to Adam O'Reiner, who's a regular character in Zack Ryder's Z True Long Island Story. O'Reiner wasn't signed either. Velez, who was cut from NXT a year ago, unfairly stigmatized by claims of poor attitude, outclassed and defeated Lady Tappa, but the judges signed Tappa. Velez would appear in a couple of TNA one-night-only pay-per-views, but is back out on the independent scene. Adam Pearce also outclassed and defeated Magno, but the judges sent Pearce home. Pearce was recently hired as a trainer at the WWE Performance Center, but is not expected to be a part of the roster. In truth, having Pearce go through Gut Check is like AJ Styles going through Tough Enough. TNA ended up putting Gut Check out of its misery in August when Bruce Pritchard, Danny Davis, and D'Lo Brown left the company. Al Snow still remains with TNA. The departure of Pritchard came back to bite TNA hard when a Cape Girardeau house show was crippled when several members of the roster had licensing issues with the Missouri Athletic Commission and weren't allowed to wrestle. Pritchard was in charge of maintaining that paperwork. Number 5, iwa Limited forced to move out of the place it called home in Olney after a 6-year run. IWA Productions opened a wrestling school on the 3rd floor of the Knights of Columbus Hall in Olney back in October of 2008 with free weekly Wednesday shows in order for the talent as part of their training to get experience competing in front of a crowd. This practice continued even after the ownership split into IWAP and IWOW. However, the hottest free ticket in town did attract some passionate, rowdy clientele. People were running in and out of the building, some to smoke, but others were getting into brawls resulting in police calls. Owners of the KC Hall demanded action as fan behavior was becoming a nuisance. IWOW responded in September by charging admission and recharged admission if the fan went outside and came back in. It did not solve the issue, and IWOW held its final event at the KC Hall on October 30th. The finale featured an IWOW heavyweight title match between champion Frank Wyatt versus Cash Borden. Borden won the match and the title. IWA Limited announced it will be relocating the school to Noble, Illinois, just 8 miles west of Albany, and resume running weekly shows in 2014. In the meantime, IWAU opened affiliates around the area. IWA Adrenaline in Fort Branch, Indiana, IWA Crossroads in Terre Haute, Indiana, IWA USA in Effingham, and IWA Devastation in Mount Vernon. IWOW is not the only wrestling school relocating. The owner of World League Wrestling, Harley Race, announced he is moving his wrestling academy from their longtime home in Dillon, Missouri to Troy, Missouri, near the far northwestern suburbs of St. Louis. Jason Jones also revealed, after becoming fully established as a competitor, he was the real-life son of Harley Race and that he now competes under his real name, Leland Race. Number 4, the Gathering of the Juggalos end a 6-year run of their own at the Hog Rock Campgrounds in Hardin County from a tweet posted by Jump Steady Robert Bruce, who's the brother of Insane Clown Posse frontman Violent J, Joe Bruce. Psychopathic Records has located a new site to host the gathering. The new location has not been disclosed, nor why they were changing locations. However, the annual Music and Wrestling Festival has been a financial drain on the county of 5,000 residents, and the Illinois State Police in enforcing traffic, public safety, and substance laws. The county recently passed a public safety tax to try offsetting police and rescue expenses. The gathering once again had issues with drugs and violence as a number of juggalos were hospitalized for overdosing on a synthetic drug similar to LSD known as the N-bomb. A lone fatality occurred when one patron overdosed on heroin and died in a tent. There were other issues as vendors and local businesses racked up $300,000 in bounce checks from ICP and Company. Even a check donating to the Hardin County Sheriff's Office for protective vests, stun guns, and other equipment bounced. Last year, ICP filed a lawsuit against the FBI for classifying fans of their music a street gang. Number 3, New Midwest Wrestling in limbo after having to depart from Lanphier High School while bad promoters make a comeback. After a little more than 4 years, administrators at Lanphier changed its rules on outside events running at their gym, making it cost prohibitive for New Midwest to continue running there. Promoter Justin McIntyre vowed to take his time in locking down a suitable alternative. As the months elapsed, the questions started to mount. When was New Midwest coming back? Meanwhile, 2 promotions which left a foul taste in the mouths of fans and talent alike with disastrous results in 2011 suddenly reappeared. Rex Gill attempted to resurrect Holy Havoc Championship Wrestling in Springfield but was forced to cancel its comeback show. Eventually, he ended up poaching the venue used by Pro Wrestling Epic in Mount Pulaski. hardly anyone bought tickets. Its most recent attempt drew a whopping 5 paid. Another bad promoter, Hillbilly Joe, known for vulgar rants on internet streaming audio, and admitted to Ray Lytle to bilking the welfare system in December 2011, resurrected RWO, changing it from redneck to renegade. However, despite claims of putting on better cards, they continued to book underaged and untrained people. A number of those featured on the Facebook page Trash Bag Wrestlers. They were mixed with wrestlers desperate to get ring time that they couldn't get elsewhere. The draw at these shows, run at the pricey Nelson Center, were low. Worse than that, RWO managed to get booked at area fairs and festivals. We suspect festival organizers had no idea what they were actually getting, nor knew any of the sordid history, to which we felt it necessary to produce this educational public service announcement. Professional wrestling, entertaining action that attracts a crowd and provides excitement at a fair or festival. The right promotion will have professionally trained talent with professional grade ring gear and equipment. Fairgoers will want to see more of them and attend ticketed events in the area. Bringing the wrong promotion, not vetting their credentials, you could end up with an embarrassing disaster. The talent may have no ring gear, little or no professional training, aren't family friendly, and perform so poorly you'll wish they'd return to the backyard they came from. Burned organizers won't chance bringing in pro wrestling ever again, shutting out legitimate promoters. And the fairgoers, if they want to see wrestling, will only go to WWE events. If you want live professional wrestling at your fair or festival, don't get burned. Check their credentials before you book. A public service announcement from the Nosebleed Seats. You can contact us on Facebook for more information. Central Illinois Pro Wrestling. RWO ended up poaching the very same Mount Pulaski venue from HHCW while still drawing very low numbers. With the venue ruined for them, Pro Wrestling Epic has been forced to take its events somewhere else. Where it will run in 2014 has not been established. Meanwhile, back in Springfield, with the NMW hiatus dragging on, Proving Ground Pro, which ran its first 5 events in Jacksonville, decided to give it a go in Springfield for July with a main event between Prince Ali and Ring of Honor's superstar Michael Elgin. Despite heavy promotion, including roadside banners, signs in 35 communities, and TV commercials, the draw was a very disappointing 100 fans, which fully debunked the notion that not enough promotion was the reason why draws in Springfield had been low. PGP finally drew close to 200 running in Petersburg last November. They're running their next events at the Sherman Athletic Club. Pinfall Wrestling Association, which has continuously ran events in Springfield for the past few years, employs several current and former members of the New Midwest roster. They have struggled to fill the JC Activity Center despite radio promotion and trying a promotional event in between a doubleheader for the Springfield Sliders baseball team. PWA's Super Show at the Nelson Center was a low draw, perhaps due to RWO's past shows before them. As to why New Midwest has not been able to return can be traced to internal strife between the owners over its direction, promotion, and talent. The ownership team of McIntyre and Ramsey has been in place since July 2006. While McIntyre has stated in an MBS podcast interview he's taken his time to find a suitable new venue, Sage Ramsey has completely ruled out running outside of Springfield entirely, apart from his hometown of Verdon. Despite drawing well in Kincaid, it was not worth towing the ring there due to wear and tear on their vehicles. With expensive building costs and limited local venue choices with multiple promotions looking, things became completely deadlocked with no end in sight. McIntyre currently holds a producer position for Dreamwave Wrestling, while Ramsey became a commissioner at Pinfall after having to retire from active competition due to injury. Ramsey ran his own unaffiliated Unfair Games event in Verdon, possibly providing a window as to what a solely Ramsey-owned New Midwest could look like if he could buy out the other owner. One major part of the strife is traceable to Ramsey's protégés being cut from NMW in 2010 due to a belief they couldn't hang with the other members of the roster. McIntyre assisted heavily with the Indestructible event Dan the Man's fundraiser show in Chillicothe, though the event was booked by the Dixieland Destroyer. We reached out to the owners of NMW for this story. McIntyre refused comment. Ramsey wanted to speak out but is withholding comment for now. If New Midwest is to run another event, it looks like the only way it will happen is for New Midwest to be taken over by a completely new ownership team. November 2014 will mark the 15th anniversary of New Midwest Wrestling, assuming New Midwest comes back. Number 2. Chris Hagstrom sells Pro Wrestling Collision 5 months after breaking away from All-American Pro Wrestling. In a shock move in December 2012, Hagstrom announced he was leaving AAPW to start Pro Wrestling Collision, taking the ring, roster, and staff, claiming it was necessary because he would be able to do things in PWC that he couldn't do in AAPW. PWC no longer had the Black Diamond Harley-Davidson warehouse for a venue and used the SIU Ballroom in its debut and later the Boys and Girls Club gym in Carbondale. However, while PWC still maintained a quality in-ring product, fan attendance dropped big. Draws were down into the 50s, and Hagstrom in April announced that he was selling the organization and would name the new owner at Survival Mode in May. In yet another shock move, Hagstrom named Jay Wellington Beauregard, who was known only as an intern to wrestling manager Gaylord Stevens, though they say he had involvement in the old AAPW promotion. Whether he was capable of running such a high-profile promotion or not was unclear, as his credentials in the wrestling business were largely unknown. However, since the company's sale, PWC had only run once in October, and no events are scheduled, leaving the future of the company in doubt. Pro Wrestling Collision also no longer has a time slot on WSIL in Harrisburg. We reached out to Chris Hagstrom for comment on this story, but it went unanswered. Somewhere, Sean Chambers is smiling. In another surprise change of ownership that appeared out of nowhere, Marlo Thomas came out to the ring at the conclusion of Dreamwave Wrestling's August event and announced she was the new owner of the organization. Whether she's the sole owner of the company started by Jay Repsol, brought into the ownership team, or bought out one of the existing owners is largely unknown, as well as her credentials and past experience in the wrestling business. Her first act was to fire JC Castilli for attempting to get rid of Christian Rose. Rose would go on to win the Dreamwave Heavyweight title a few months later. And the number 1 story of 2013, The Fall of the Future. St. Louis native Donovan Ruddock, real name Brian McGee, accused of first-degree murder in the stabbing of a former girlfriend in Tampa, Florida. After getting signed to WWE Developmental Florida Championship Wrestling, later renamed NXT in 2010, Future made his debut under the name DT Porter, but went down to injury following his first match. The strain of being on the DL got to Future as evidenced by a Facebook post made in May 2012 that appeared to be a cry for help. He accused trainers of ribbing and disrespecting him to the point where he struggled to keep his sanity and developed a drinking problem. That post, which was later deleted after wrestling news sites quoted it, was claimed by Future to have been made by hackers and contacted yours truly for assistance in getting the news reports retracted. Months later, it was announced there was mutual agreement to separate from WWE. Future in April made his return to the Midwest Wrestling for St. Louis Anarchy and 01 Supreme. His return at 01 was not without incident, as a fan was punched at Swamp Stomp, where Bear St. Pierre executed a post-match suplex into the crowd of Eastern Illinois University students who began kicking the both of them, to which Future retaliated. Charges were not filed as the parties settled their issue. Future was set to perform in July but canceled the trip 4 days before this happened, as described in this WFTS TV Channel 28 report in Tampa.
As we broke first on ABC Action News this morning, deputies say he stabbed his girlfriend to death in the parking lot of a Tampa apartment complex. Tonight, our Carson Chambers tells us why he's being held in Pasco County. Carson?
Linda, deputies say that the former pro wrestler actually got in his car and ran away from that murder scene, crashed it in Pasco County. Tonight, we know he's been booked into the Pasco County Jail just behind us, but we also know shortly after that he was transferred to a mental health facility.
What you see right here, 6'9", 275 pounds.
His pro wrestling stage name in the WWE was The Future, but Brian McGee's looks pretty down.
I put out the little angel and some candles and stuff.
This slab of sidewalk at Tampa's San Marino Apartments is where neighbors say 25-year-old Bianca McGee took her last breaths.
Then I heard the screams, and I came down and went back up and called 911.
Deputies say McGee stabbed his ex-girlfriend multiple times in the neck and torso as they argued here.
And then the man actually got up on the bark and stood out and looked over her.
A bitter fight, neighbors say, started on Saturday, but ended last night outside Avion Yarborough's apartment.
I seen the dude come back, got on top of her and just started stabbing.
Deputies say the victim had dated the pro wrestler previously, but the pair broke up about a year ago. They also say McGee jumped into his car and got as far as I-75 and US 41 in Pasco County before he was arrested.
Last night he crashed his vehicle and refused to get out of the car, so they deployed one of our canine, Chino. Chino actually got into the vehicle and helped in the apprehension of him.
A photo of a bloody gash is featured on what appears to be McGee's Facebook page, but it's not clear if this is his wrist. Tonight, we do know the former pro wrestler is placed on a mental health hold and faces a first-degree murder charge in Hillsborough County.
Gino, a 7-year-old German Shepherd police dog who caught McGee, retired from active duty the following day after a 5-year career in law enforcement. McGee was denied bond and is being held in Hillsborough County Jail in Florida. His murder trial is set to begin on January the 13th. If convicted, McGee is eligible for the death penalty.
As the year comes to a close, it's now time to look back at some of the names and faces of our warriors in the ring that we lost during the year 2013. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to this edition of the Nosebleed Seats TV. Be sure to follow us on CentralIllinoisProWrestling.com and the St. Louis Wrestling Community at stowrestling.livejournal.com. We hope everyone has a happy, merry 2014.